Thank you very much for taking time out to come tonight. Just before we start, we'll just ask the chairman of the Wainuiomata Community Board, Gabriel Tupou, if you'll come forward, please, and open our meeting. Thank you, Gabriel. Well, as they say in life, if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. So firstly, I want to acknowledge Sally Ann and media for the work that they have done behind the scenes to bring attention to this issue. The format for tonight is pretty relaxed. What you're seeing on the screen is on the live, is going out on Facebook Live, which is both positive and negative. It's positive if you say something intelligent. It's not so good if you sound like a dickhead, but that's all good. Just a couple of rules, you know, where the door is if there's any difficulty coming in and out. As far as housekeeping is concerned, the toilets are located somewhere. And if you smoke, stop. Right. I've talked about right, good conduct and mutual respect. We hope will be a theme that runs through the evening. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the present Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Right Honourable Trevor Mallard, the Mayor Ray Wallace, who is here as well, Hutt South MP, Chris Bishop, cricket player extraordinaire. Actually, Chris Bishop's grandmother and Trevor Mallard were arrested in the 1981 Springbok tour on the Hutt motorway. That's just for were you not? Were you not arrested? Not on the Hutt motorway. Oh, were you a protester? I was. You was a protester. So Chris's grandmother and Trevor were protesting the 1981 Springbok tour. I'm not quite sure what Chris's grandmother would make of how he's turned out being a member of the National Party, given she was clearly a woman of strong social conscience and fibre, Christopher. But anyway, also Ginny Anderson, Hutt South List MP, and elected representatives also that are in the room. Thank you for coming tonight. First up is Sally Ann with a presentation of why we are all here tonight. Sally.
Is it possible to have the lights down? Any fabulous helpers? Ooh, what do we reckon? Do we like that? I hear a yeah, possibly from the youngest person in the room. Thank you very much. Talofa lava, kia ora, hello, my name is Sally Ann Moffat and I am a very proud resident of Wainuiomata. We do things a little differently here in Wainuiomata, so we call our own public meetings when we want to have a korero and dialogue stuff, so I really appreciate each and every one of you for coming here tonight. I need to show you some information because I come from the school of show, don't tell, so I'm going to try and talk as little as possible and show you why we're here and I guess outline a little bit of what's been going on in our beautiful valley.
This is a World Heritage Site, one of the most beautiful parts of the country. 100% pure, clean and... Yeah? Nah. How does this hit you personally when you see this?
Heartbreaking.
Pastor, Spates, good on you, mate. Whoever threw that out, a pair of underpants.
A nice nappy. Do you want some M&Ms?
They're doing it for nothing.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it?
It's wonderful because it's free.
No, it's wonderful because we're not going to do it at the present time within our budget.
How much more is there left to do?
We've done less than 5%, probably like 1%. This is a joke. It's absolutely embarrassing to New Zealand that this is the state of it. This is already happening in other places. This is a national emergency.
There are lots of dumps around the coast that are vulnerable to sea level rise. We're going to see more and more events like this as climate change kicks in.
How much money would we need to spend in New Zealand to clean this up?
Huge. It'd be well into the billions.
Well into the billions to clean this up. And they're talking about dumps and landfills and tips that are potentially going to be affected by climate change. We all know in this room that climate change is real. Wainuiomata, a valley with a whole lot of heart. I was attracted to move to Wainuiomata 5 years ago, but the Moffats have been associated with Wainuiomata long before I was here. There was a family that arrived and settled in Petone, and they settled there and had a very interesting time with the locals, and eventually they moved on from Petone and they settled in Wainuiomata. They built the first house here. They foolishly built it next to the river. Guess what happened? The river took the house. They built another house, and they built it on Coast Road, on a rise, away from the river. That is the house that attracted me to Wainuiomata. The Collises built the first house in Wainuiomata, and when my husband and I bought that house, we recognized that that house was there before we existed. That house is going to be there long after we disappear, we hope, and we are caretakers of the land. We've met many former owners. It's a bit of an attraction. When the church had its centenary, a lot of people were associated with that church came and visited us and visited our home. So we have a connection. The house came with a history, and the history of the house is that one of the Collises married a Moffat. Now, the Moffats have been here since the first ships came to New Zealand, in Dunedin, in the South Island. And while I can dress like a townie and look like a townie and talk like a townie, I'm a country girl at heart. So living rurally has been my dream since my early 20s, when I figured out that my parents weren't going to provide for me my whole life and that I needed to get out there and make something of myself. My dream as a young person was to get a plot of land, regenerate the bush, or if I was lucky, buy a land with bush already on it, and have kiwi in my backyard. That was my dream. It wasn't riches, it wasn't fancy cars, it wasn't a big fancy apartment, it was my backyard. And I used to live in Woburn, and one day I opened the Hutt News and I saw this beautiful picture of this very humble little cottage. And I saw where that cottage backed onto, the Rimataka Forest Park. Now that park, I'm sure you all know in this room, is where we have repopulated kiwi. And I saw my dream come to life. It was there within my grasp. My husband and I came out and we took one look at the place where it was, next to the Rimataka Forest Park, next to that beautiful river, and we thought, we've found home. When we came to meet the owners to do the handover, a ruru swooped over our heads, and that was our welcome to Wainuiomata 5 years ago. We met our neighbours. They gave us 1 year. They took one look at us townies and thought, they're going to last a year. 5 years later, we're still here. Some of you might know me from my days at TVNZ when I was on camera talking about, of all things, fashion, something I'm very passionate about. Since those days, I've kept a pretty low profile coming here to Wainuiomata, but some things have happened recently in our environment that have caused me to not keep that low profile, to want to speak out. And partly that's because of where I live. I live on Coast Road, and across the road from me, there is a river with a floodplain, and on that floodplain, there is a clean fill. So I'm just going to take you through a few of clean fill management as written by the Ministry for the Environment. One of the things they talk about is how environmental factors that would make a site unacceptable for development as a clean fill. Such fatal flaws include, but may not be limited to, one of the points you'll see there is construction within a floodplain or watercourse. Identification of any of these factors or other potentially significant adverse effects of this initial survey would typically eliminate a site from further consideration, but we know that it didn't. So here is our beautiful river, our beautiful awa, and it wraps around this. I'm going to call it a landfill or a tip, because one of the things I understand from reading the Ministry for the Environment guidelines is that the presence of any prohibited items in a clean fill immediately mean that it is not referred to as a clean fill anymore, it's referred to as a landfill or a tip. So we have a landfill tip on a floodplain, and there's our beautiful floodplain. Here's another view showing the scale. This is stage 1 and 2 in here, and stage 3 of course is going down here. Now you'll notice the river, it's very clearly marked by the beautiful cracked willows, a food source of keriru. So they wrap around there and you can see the river there. And stage 3 is going to head a lot closer to that river, and also closer into a floodplain and erosion zones. We'll get to that later. Another view, this view of course is looking towards the township, and you can see that river bend just there. Stage 3 is coming down here. A friend in the audience made this for me. It is a flood and erosion plan taken from Greater Wellington Regional Council and helpfully updated to show the clean. And you'll see the blue lines of flood spread, and the red lines are Wainuiomata River erosion. And these red lines and these blue lines are through this clean fill. It's pretty sobering stuff. So we talk a little bit, well, the Ministry for the Environment, this is all online, you're welcome to have a look at it, talks about what is and isn't allowed in a clean fill, and this is all through all of the application material too. One of the biggies is liquid waste. Does everyone know what a liquid is? I hope so. Here's some liquid in our clean fill. The hydrovac trucks bring it in. Now, the Ministry for the Environment say liquid waste by their very nature can potentially seep directly into the environment and are therefore unacceptable. Materials that do not exhibit any of these properties are acceptable. Now I'm talking about hydrovacs and vac trucks. You might not know what those are. They're trucks that use water to excavate sites for construction. They do a wonderful job. They're great. So what's happening is these trucks are coming over the hill. They're coming into Wainuiomata to this landfill, and they're dumping their hydrovac material. Now the council calls this stuff slurry. So what's in slurry? A whole heap of chemicals potentially. And what I've done on the limited investigation that I've done tells me that slurry is typically not contaminant free. And in other places, I mean around the world, and in Australia there's a lot of work going on, in the US there are huge arguments happening in towns about what is and isn't appropriate to do with slurry. In other places, it needs full analytical data before acceptance into any tip, not clean tip, okay? So you can see from this wonderful angle where that liquid's sitting in our clean fill. Interestingly, images like this are noticeably absent from the application material that I've seen from the Hutt City Council, who own this clean fill and who want to extend it. Okay, many of you will have seen this image on social media. A large quantity of plastic on its own or with other combustible material may present a fire hazard. Plastics used in domestic or industrial situations, for example, are unacceptable as they are typically used as containers and may be with other materials. Council will have you believe that this is a small amount of plastic, but you can see the size of the recycling bins and you can see the size of those mounds. So this is recycling from our city that has somehow mysteriously ended up in our clean fill. Clean fill is material that will have no adverse effect on people or the environment when buried. This is from the Hutt City site itself, and it says, goes on to say lots of rules, you can read them all in your own time. The kicker here is that the clean fill is for commercial customers only. Doesn't look very commercial to me. Now, I stood and watched this man for 15 minutes. He unpacked his car. He had many, many containers and a whole heap of bags, which he threw in the air down the slope. And I managed to get a little bit of video of that too. I watched him pick up these large containers himself. He showed no signs of strain. Council will have you believe that those containers had concrete in them differently. I don't know anyone, I've never seen anyone throw concrete like that. I've picked up concrete myself, those bags, it's very heavy. Okay, the application that we're here to talk about is for expansion. It has the potential for 208 truck movements through Wainui. The current consent states no more than 40 vehicles per day. That's on page 18 of the current consent. But the CE's latest email to me about truck movements is that the consent application is indeed incorrect, and truck movements are as high as 200 per day, coming through Wainuiomata, past your homes, past your primary schools, past your kindergartens. And that's quite a high number. And it's, I don't know, I'm not very good with math. A little bit more, isn't it? Over 200 truck movements per day are predicted. Look at the road. That's the road near the Cleanfield. I need you to understand the road looks like that every day. And I also have a lot of anecdotal evidence of people complaining to the council and council not recording their complaint. Has anyone had that experience? Yeah, I see a lot of hands. Interesting stuff, huh? Trucks are coming from, quote again from the current consent, around the Wellington region. People have suggested to me on social media and in person that the trucks are from Wainui and that they're for Wainui. This is a good thing for Wainui. Well, I want you to know that construction is a good thing for Wainui. I am behind the redevelopment of our shopping centre. I am very happy that we are putting in a home for our elderly. This is wonderful. I'm an absolute supporter of that, and so are many of the people who want to protect our awa. But what we are not in support of is a council that has inadequately planned to support that construction. There are going to be some people I'm going to invite up onto the stage in a minute. A couple of weeks ago, I sent a tweet out. If you're on Twitter, you'll understand. If you're not, that's okay too. I sent a tweet out to Helen Clark, the leader of the Greens, and a friend of mine who works at DOC. And I said, kia ora, this is it, my big to the 3 most influential Kiwi, river and environment loving people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Please help me protect this river. And quick smart, back came Helen. This is a worry. Can we have bipartisan support here for safeguarding environmental values here? Chris Bishop, Speaker Trevor, me, the Greens, Eugenie, and Ginny Anderson. So these are the people I will be inviting up at the end of my presentation to join me on stage. We will create a panel and then we will take questions from the audience. Helen she gets invited all around the world. She recently said, transparency is the keystone of good governance. Without transparency, trust in the edifice of public institution crumbles. Let's talk about trust. Where is the trust when council extends the life and size of a cleanfill next to our river, our awa, through non-notified means? Yeah, right on. Where is the trust when decisions that affect the environment and the wider community and our safety and our economy are being made behind closed doors? Oh, I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm going to pick up our economy. You're going to hear a lot of spin and rebuttal coming out of the council, and one of the things they're going to talk about is how the economy is going to really suffer if this cleanfill closes. And I want to point out that there are other solutions, and there has been plenty of time to find other solutions. I've been having this conversation with council for a year. You cannot tell me that they do not know when their own consents expire for a cleanfill. They do know because that consent expired in 2017, and then they snuck through a non-notified consent so that they could extend its life for 10 years. The current extent is, or the current extension is for time only. Now we're at a problem of volume. The volume is nearly at capacity. So knowing that there are wonderful developments happening in our community across the Hutt Valley, across Wellington and the wider region, and here in Wainuiomata to build and support this community, why on earth would you make promises with developers and promise them a cleanfill that you have not got a consent for yet, that you have not gone to the community yet and asked if the community wants it? Interesting question. We're here to ask questions. There's a wonderful page in the latest application for a consent, and it's the Mayor's personal assurance. Please take a little time to read it. It should be noted that Hutt City Council's Mayor and Chief Executive, who was Tony at the time, have provided their personal assurances of the following. You know, personal assurances are interesting because if anything goes wrong, there's a legal liability there. I'm not sure that they thought this through, and Fox River hadn't happened yet. Current consented fill will be topped off and planted in 2019, probably over the winter period. Wainuiomata, has this happened? No. No, you are quite correct. It has not. The proposal to maximum 2.5 year fill period. Well, pull the other one because it was only supposed to be here for 6 years. Has it been here, Wainuiomata? 9. Yeah, too many. You've got it. Blah, 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 blah. Hutt City Council would ensure that invitations were sent to regular community meetings over the period. There were supposed to be regular community meetings over the first consent. Did those regular community meetings happen, Wainuiomata? No, they did not. So this is a fun piece of personal assurance. Hutt City Council will commence investigations into the long-term planning for the city's future clean fill requirements in other locations. Eureka, we have it. I received this, thank you, it's very funny. I received this, I think, this document or this personal assurance maybe in December, I'm not 100% sure, but right now, if you want to read it, it's on page 34 of the current expansion application. 24th of December, an email from Ray. Hi Sally Ann, thanks for your email. Probably fair to say the CE, Tony, has thought I'm more supportive than is the case. What I have said to Tony is, let's get the old area finished, planted out and looking great, so that you can have your confidence restored that the area has in fact been improved to the standards agreed and approved consent. Wainuiomata, has that happened? No, it has not. Also said to Tony, I believe we need to meet with you all again in person to actually find out, discuss with the consultants and Bruce Sherlock. Do you recognise his name, Wainuiomata? Exide? No. The penny drops. What is actually being asked of the Coastal Road residents? I've told Tony that was never discussed in the original plans, which it wasn't. So way before any consent is to be considered or potentially lodged, let's talk with the local residents and listen to their thoughts. Did that happen, Wainuiomata? No, it did not. Council behaviour. Ignoring Ministry for the Environment's clean fill guidelines. Lack of transparency. Lack of consultation with community and iwi. Lack of future planning affects all of us. Puts through consent changes as non-notified. Lack of trust. It's not ideal. The Local Government Act. Persons who wish to have their views on the decision or matter considered by the local authority should be provided by the local authority with a reasonable opportunity to present these views to the local authority in a manner and format that is appropriate to the preferences and needs of those persons. Well, I was told we would have community korero on this, and we haven't. And this is why my neighbours and I decided to host our own public meeting, to invite the public here, to have the korero, to find out what Wainuiomata wants. If someone says they'll do it and they don't, just do it yourself, right? So what do we want? We want to protect our awa from the risk of environmental disaster like Fox River. We want to protect those living downstream of the tip from potential loss of life, yes, and damage to their homes. We want the original consent of 2010 to be honoured by planting the land as a reserve with native trees. We want Hutt City Council to own up to their lack of planning. This is an issue of lack of planning. Yes. We want them to withdraw their expansion application and seek alternative sites like, here's a solution, using their own landfill. Now, you might be wondering how you coming tonight was a huge help. Sincere thanks. Have your views heard. I invite us all, if you haven't already, to submit a response to Council about this expansion. I invite you all, if you haven't already, to donate to our Give a Little The thing that the council knows is that Wainuiomata is not rich. I wasn't invited here, or I didn't get attracted here because I'm a millionaire. I'm here because the prices were good. We don't have a lot of money to fight this, but you know what? If we all band together, we can. They know this. Sign up to our supporters sheet. Hopefully you did that when you came in. Follow our webpage, stopwainuiglenfield.org. Follow us on social media. That would be huge. I need to let you know that Council sadly decided that there are only 9 official affected parties, and we will be speaking at the hearing session. It is now booked to be on Tuesday, November the 5th. We would love to see you all there. Questions. We have some questions. Why did Council choose not to notify the public for this consent in 2019 and the 2017 consent? Have Council already made promises to developers dependent on Wainuiomata staying open? Why has the Mayor not followed through on his email to me, his promises or his personal assurances? How close is this clean fill to capacity? How can the public have their say on this clean fill? As is your right. Can we have the lights up now? And I'd like to, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. So if your name was mentioned in Helen Clark's tweet, I invite you to the, you know who you are, I hope. Don't make me call you up. We would love a representative from the Greens to come up as well. We know there are, yes, thank you, that would be wonderful. Enough chairs. I don't have to be up here anymore. Now we've made a step around there. The idea now, Ken is going to run us through what happens next. This is a public meeting. We invite your questions. We invite you to be kind and loving towards each other, to respect the people on the stage. If you have a question, we have a sheet actually of people who have indicated, there we go, we have the sheet, and we welcome questions from those people who have indicated that they would like to talk. I will hand, actually no, maybe I'll be the on the floor lady.
What about Ray?
Ray, would you like to take a seat? There's a seat here. I'm going on the, yep, that's it.
Well, kia ora everybody. Thank you, Sally Ann, for calling this meeting together. It's very much appreciated, and I just do want to acknowledge that I'm supported by some of my council colleagues, but we also have the Chief Executive, the new Chief Executive, Joe Miller, and our General Manager of the Planning Division. Clearly there are issues there that we as Sally and media know when we had our first meeting. Has there been some of the conditions not met? Absolutely, and we've acknowledged that, and that is simply not good enough. I'm disappointed, and I don't know the reason why. The condition that the Chief Executive sent you about having the area planted out by now has not happened. I'm not sure whether Helen or Joe can make that comment, but I agree that's not good enough. When you came and saw me, Sally Ann, with media, I did believe that you had some genuine concerns, and you do, and certainly from that presentation there are issues that have to be addressed. What I can tell you is, though, with the proposal, and Sally Ann and Mary that they couldn't come to the hearing because of issues that they weren't there, so we got that changed. There originally wasn't going to be notification, which I didn't think was good enough either, so they have gone to the immediate neighbours that are affected by this, and we have appointed, or about to appoint, an independent commissioner, a person that is an expert in this area, not councillors, not the mayor, someone that is expert, that has that expertise to be able to look at this in a cold, hard, light fact of day. And from what's been put up there, I'd be very surprised to see how anyone could give that extension. What I might also say, though, is when Sally Ann came and spoke to me, there was looking at an extension for 10 years. I did ask the officers, why would we do that for an additional 10 years when the original one was only for 6 years? And what happened as a result of that is that they're now saying that it will only be possibly 2.5 years to complete the whole fill, then to actually plant it all out. So, I mean, that's a positive. Sally Ann can take real good heart in that it's been her actions that has helped that happen. Are we still interested in having that discussion? Absolutely. I think the then Chief Executive and Bruce Sherlock did acknowledge that the community panel, the community meetings and meetings, that didn't happen, and that wasn't good enough. But there was a commitment given that would happen. So that's where it's at the moment. The application will go through for consideration, but we can have, and certainly looking at that, and Sally Ann and I have discussed it, so has Midian, so has the Chief Executive and I, 200 traffic movements a day seems obscene, particularly when it is coming past a school. So I have asked the officers, is that a condition that can be put into the application about limiting the number of traffic movements? And I'm told that is the case, yes. So clearly we would want that to happen as well. Helen, I don't know, are you able to make any comment about why it hasn't been planted now? David, yep, okay. Do you want, you can come up or you can just, from there, you've got a strong voice.
I've just taken on from Bruce. I've been in there for all 3 weeks, so I've come into this. Obviously, some of the stuff that's coming up, obviously you're showing landfills. What we're dealing with is the clean fill side there.
I think Dave, the issue for Sally Ann and the local is that there are some of those issues, maybe around those bottles. Are we able to answer what was the situation with those bottles?
Mixed in with clean fill. I've seen that one. I've not seen that pictures before in time, but it seems to me there'd been like a stockpile. We do get stuff coming in, which is a mistake, and the guys pick it up and then we take it through the Silverstream landfill. So we do get stockpiles, and we do go through the materials. I don't know what's happened before my time, but we're actually clamping down on making sure what's coming in. Most of the material that's coming in is we're just moving dirt from one place to another. So it's basically what the land's made out of. And maybe a few bottles in there now and again.
So what sort?
Oh, sorry, yeah, the plant's in the reserve. So what we're going to do is basically, the whole idea is obviously it's supposed to be done by now. Obviously it's never got filled and gone for consultation. So once it's all finished, we're going to consult everybody and see what we want to do. We'll put trees on it, put a reserve on it, put whatever you want on it, basically. So what we're doing in consultation with yourself. Like we said, there's only probably 18 months left, maximum, to build a bit that's going to fit. And that's it. We are now actually looking at other areas and we are trying to investigate areas too.
So team, thank you, Dave. What sort of assurances, because I'm picking that up from the audience, what sort of assurances can we give them that any of the trucks coming in, that they're checked to make sure that it is clean fill material? Is there anything that we can assurances on? I know that can be part of any consent by the independent commissioner, but what other assurances can be given to ensure that there is it is proper product suitable for a clean fill site? Are there any assurances that you can think of at the moment, other than that the trucks will be? Joe, do you want to come up and introduce yourself? Can I, sorry, gents, I know that, and ladies, we're about to have a panel, but it would be worthwhile because most people haven't had the opportunity, other than those that turned up to the board meeting last week, and good on you, just to introduce Joe Miller, who's the new Chief Executive.
Joe, you've got 2 minutes.
Hi everyone. My name is Jo Miller. I'm the Council's Chief Executive and I have been for just shy of 2 months. Obviously I'm not presupposing that consent is given. You know, we have to see that's an independent hearing on the 5th of November now, which you've changed. I met Sally Ann, I think it was week 4, Sally Ann, in the role. So a number of things I think we can do. In the current application, it talks about 40 vehicles, 40 to 50 vehicles per day average, and our current consent application talks about a maximum of 150, and I've already written to Sally Ann to this, say actually that's got to be a commissioner who's decided that, but I think voluntarily we shouldn't be looking at anything near 150. You should keep the average of 40 and make 100 the absolute maximum, not 150/200. In terms of what goes into the site, I would, if consent is given, then I think that I would like to suggest that what we should do is have a management plan that we work with people that's transparent and open, so that we can do that together in terms of what's there, and that certainly happens in other places. So that's an offer I'd like to make. And I think that where we do get complaints, we should publish them. And I've written to, and again, saying if anybody wants to come and see the clean fill, we'd be very happy. I'd be very happy to organise tours around that, so we can work from an informed basis of what we want to change. I think that's in minutes, and I'm going to shut up.
And the other issue that was a big concern, obviously, with Sally Ann and local residents was, of course, all the mud that the big trucks have come through. Now, my understanding is there is a new wheel wash there, that's going to be closely monitored, because that was a very valid point. I've come down a couple of times and seen the mud everywhere, so that we've been assured that it will work. It's not just going through a puddle, that there is actually a proper wheel wash there to ensure that when it's been around the site before it goes off, and that might mean the operator scrubbing the clumps off the truck wheels, because truck wheels are pretty big, before it comes out. And that's what we've been told.
Thanks, Ray. We're going to take questions after. It's supposed to be 2 minutes per person. Ray's had an hour and a half.
Yeah, no, you and me.
So, Christopher?
What, 2 minutes, have I? Okay, thanks very much. Look, pretty clear to me there are 3 things going on here. Firstly, there's been 3 failures. Firstly, there's been a failure of monitoring, and I think it's good to hear that the council accepts that they've failed to monitor the site properly and what's been going in and what's been going on. So that's the first thing that's pretty obvious when you listen to Sally Ann's presentation. I thank you, Sally Ann, for the very comprehensive and thorough work you've done over on this. So that's the first thing. The second is, it's pretty clear to me there's been a failure of process, and it's I think manifestly clear there's massive disconnect between what the community think or thought was happening at the Cleanfield site and actually what has been going on. So the application to extend the consent, for up to 10 years, increase the number of vehicle movements, the very limited notification, the total lack of engagement with the community on the Coast Road, the school, Dale Village, for example, where my office is just down the road. No one had any idea. So there's a real disconnect between the process that the council should have undertaken and what they actually did undertake. And I think the mayor and the councillors will accept that. And then the third thing is, and I think I'll just finish on this point because I think we deserve some answers. There is a failure of clarity about exactly what has been applied for. So I was understood from Sally Ann's presentation that there was a existing open application from the council on the table to extend the life of the Cleanfield by up to a decade. Well, we're now hearing tonight that actually the council only needs about another 18 months on the existing site, and then we can start the planting, and that also the vehicle movements, we just heard from the council CE, I wrote it down, the maximum should be 100, the applications for up to 200, there was also talk of 150. We need to know exactly what the application currently before the independent commissioner is for, and what concessions the council is willing to make potentially tonight or in the days as a result of the community opposition and the anger expressed in this room. If the Cleanfield is only required for another 18 months, then the application should be for 18 months, and the application should state, and the council should state and concede before the independent commissioner We will only require it for 18 more months, and after that, the operation of the clean fill will be illegal. That's what I'm hearing from the council and the councillors, and that's what exactly the application should say, in my view.
That's fair comment, Chris. Helen, can you just let us know?
No. With the greatest respect, Mayor, I'm running the show, mate. Thank you.
Okay, and I think you won't often get Chris and I much closer together than this, other than the fact that I live there. Like, I live in Fork Avenue, where at the moment out the back, because it used to be part of the river, the back lawn is squidgy. And what it means there is that if anything affects or blocks our river downstream, the river level comes up and we will flood. And there's a whole area down there, not up at Woodhatton School, but at the lower level of Peel Place, Wood Street, Fork Avenue, Burden Avenue, and then the whole Naturi Orewa down at that end as well, which if anything happens by way of earthquake or failure on the part of the tip, then the water levels will come up because of our river will be blocked. You know, that's now I'm feeling really guilty because in 2016 this issue was raised with me by local residents, and I sought and received assurances that the damn thing was finishing the following year. And at that point I thought, well, you know, that's what the consent is for. There was no indication whatsoever to me that it was going to be extended, and I thought, well, we just basically have to live with that. And I feel guilty because I didn't follow it up. As a cyclist, I go down there, and any time it's been wet in the week previously, I have to wash my bike because there's so much dirt on the road. I should have picked that up. So to clarify things to Chris, I think there have been two things that have occurred. Yep, I can see you, Ken. Two things. The first thing is the 10-year extension, and that's gone. It went through without any hearing, any notification to anyone. And the second thing is, subsequent to that, there is another, I understand, live application to make the area bigger and to put a lot more stuff into it. There are two things alive. Both of them are wrong. The second one's alive. The first one I think should be reversed. But I just want to say that in the end, you've got to be able to trust what the council tells you, and I feel that this has been breached here. Yeah.
Kia ora koutou, is that working? No.
Go green.
Go to that one. You might take that one. Oh, going now? Yeah. Kia ora koutou. I won't recap what everyone said already. I'm Ginny. My main concern with both of the issues that Trevor just outlined, the limited public notification, that I would argue that this is an issue significant enough for our community that everybody in Wainuiomata should have the opportunity to put in a submission. And so my request from tonight from the council is to change this to being not a limited notification of 9 people, but everybody has the opportunity on the 5th of November to put a submission in, and that's their right. And I have two arguments as to why that should be. Number one is that there is new legislation that has reinstated the full well-being for local government. Those full well-beings are social, cultural, financial, and environmental. They are required under legislation to take those factors into consideration for our community when making decisions, and I don't think that that has been adhered to by making it a limited public notification. The other reason I would say is that they've just declared a climate emergency. You know, so you've got a council declaring a climate emergency who's not allowing people to have a say on whether the clean fill gets extended right down to the river. That's absolutely ridiculous. I think everybody here has got a right to submit, and I think you have every right in the world to demand that tonight from the council, and I would be really disappointed to go away without having that tonight. Look, development is a good thing. We do need new houses, but along with that development comes responsibility for decision makers to make sure it's done in a sustainable way. We know that there's been lots of permits where there's been incentives for people to build. Along with that money that's come in, we want to see a sustainable way of that leftover material being dealt with that's not in our environment for future generations. And that's all I've got to say.
Josh, just introduce yourself. Please make your side. No, you're new to the area.
Kia ora koutou, everybody. My name is Josh Van Leer. I'm an aquatic scientist and running for regional council this year in the Lower Hutt constituency. I will keep myself, what I have to say, brief, because your questions are far more important really than anything I have to say, but I just want to echo what you said around public notification. I've been doing a lot of work on the water bottling front that's been going on in our local aquifer, and part of that has the fact it has not been publicly notified. I'm a huge supporter of transparent government in that regard. And getting back to the four well-beings as well, environmental's key. And as a Green Party member, ecological responsibility is central to our kaupapa, and that is not what we're seeing here with this having a clean fill, which is an absolute misnomer given what we're seeing is actually going into that stuff. Even if compliance becomes a thing now, we still have all sorts of toxins, waste products that should not be in there. It is not a clean fill by its very definition anymore. So I just want to put full support behind protecting the Wainuiomata River and power to the people here, I guess. Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers, Josh. Right, I've got a list of people to ask questions. We'll be here till if we have 5 answers. So why don't we go through the list of questions, and then when we reasonably think it's been answered, we move on. If someone's got a better idea.
Ken, can I just state, I think the question that Ginny posed, sorry. The question that Ginny posed is a good one, and I'm not putting Helen or anyone on the spot, but in regards to opening it now, I wonder if just from a formal point of view. Well, it's good to be able to get these questions answered.
Right. I know what it's like to be a councillor when you're the chair, and you wouldn't be putting up with what you're trying to do now. So why don't we just go through the list, mate, and if there's time at the end. And if there's time at the end, mate, then we'll. Okay, Craig Innes.
Yes, okay. Hello. Right. So I've got a few questions. Is that all right?
Knock yourself out, brother.
Okay. So where is the fill in relation to erosion zones? Is the clean fill currently surrounded by stop banks? Is the site of the clean fill the former location of a sewage treatment plant? And I've looked at the historical imagery, and there seems to be piles of debris in the historical imagery. And I just wonder if that has been investigated for any toxic elements. And the last question is, has the removal of the clean fill been costed?
I just wondered, Sally, whether Helen would want to have a go at answering that. Or, no. You can put your name on the list, brother. Yeah. Helen? Yeah. Did you want to have a go at addressing those concerns that Craig's raised? Yeah.
Just while Helen's coming up.
The speaking stick is going to Helen. Sorry, Ray.
Hi, I'm Helen Oram from Hutt City Council. I can comment, so I have to hear the questions again actually, because there were a couple of things there, weren't there?
Where is the clean fill in relation to erosion zones?
I don't know off the top of my head about that, but what I do know is that, of course, there's an application in with the council at the moment. That application is assessed by an independent planner, so not by a council planner. So they will assess it against the effects on the environment. Then it will be going forward to and being determined by an independent commissioner, and in that hearing process, the independent planner will have a say, the submitters will have a say, and the applicant has a say, and then determination is made on the application based on that. So these things can be looked at in amongst the hearing for the application.
Okay, well, I mean, you would hope that you'd know these answers because that's a very fundamental question. If it's an erosion zone, the entire area could be washed away.
Yeah, so basically, sorry, I've just taken over and we're dealing with the consultants. Obviously, this has started off before I came on board. So basically, there's been a survey done and basically a plan done and a flood plan done, basically where the flooding expected. Worked on the worst case scenario. So the consultants have worked on the worst case we could ever have. So at the moment, you probably notice there's concrete blocks around the back of the site there. We're actually building a flood wall there. So this is made out of concrete blocks. So if we do get a flood, the worst case scenario, basically none of that will wash away. And that's the whole idea of it, basically. And so they've done a survey on that. Sorry? Well, it's part of the conversation.
We've got a system. That's probably the best you're going to get. Kerry Brown, you've got the next question. If you've got a question to ask, there's a list up here. Been a couple of names out. Ellis. Love your work.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Firstly, thank you, Sally Ann, for organising this public meeting. As you said, it's the public mobilising, and I just want to thank all the public, the community, for coming out tonight. I think that we're showing that we really care about our community and our environment in the community. We have got a lot of development coming into Wainuiomata, and we welcome that. We really do welcome everything that's happening with the mall, with the retirement, and there's lots of developments happening. And the developments do need a place to put their industrial waste. There's no doubt about that. And I think that's not the question we've got tonight. The question I've got is that we've got a climate emergency. We saw the this is looking at expanding, and it's going to be near the awa. It's going to be near the river, and we know what the weather is so unpredictable, and it's in a floodplain. So the question for me is, we knew that this was happening. What's the plan? What is the plan for today? What's the plan for next year? What's the plan for 3 years? And what's the plan for 5 years in relation to a clean fill? Because they are necessary, but what is the plan? And why was there not forward planning? And thirdly, can the public be part of that planning? I think more and more, it's the public the community want to be involved in decisions that affect the area. And I ask that the council just have more trust in the people to come to the right decision with them. So my question is, what's the plan for this year, next year, and 5 years? Kia ora.
Do you want to respond to that?
I fully agree with Kerry, and that's part of the deliberations and discussions that the Chief Executive is now having. There was supposed to be some more detailed work on alternate sites. My understanding was there was only one alternate site looked at, which is the landfill, the closed landfill. But we need to be looking far wider than that, so there has to be that planning. And Kerry, I hear what you're saying. The community need to be part of that.
Lisa Scott.
Oh, can I jump in on an answer there as well? Or?
No. Lisa.
There were 9 properties affected. Is mine one of them? I live on the corner of Coast Road and Paringa Street, and how do I find out if my property is one of those affected? In regarding to the constant amount of trucks, what will the council do regarding the roading that goes down past my house, potential damage to my property, and the retaining walls, not to mention the ongoing dust and noise issues. I'm currently at home at the moment. It is never quiet. It is non-stop dust, non-stop noise, constant trucks, and I've had a bloody guts full.
Who wants to handle that one?
Well, I'll handle it really quickly. You will have been told if the council thought you were affected. If you're one of the 9, you would have been told. So the council must think that you're not, just like they think I'm not.
Okay, thank you. Ian Turner.
Ian Turner.
Want a bus ring, Ian?
That's history, Ken.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening. I'm a resident of Coast Road. Question for Ray, I think. Ray, I think what we've heard tonight is that council, over a long period of time, has breached its trust with the community in terms of not carrying out and not complying with the consents or the conditions of the original consent. You're now applying for another consent, and you're telling us that you're going to be good next time. Now, why should we believe you?
Look, thanks, Ian. I think that's a valid point. I think you will have heard from the Chief Executive just earlier, myself, and also Helen, that these are concerns that we are taking on board. The very fact that it was said earlier that it was going to be a 10-year extension, that's outrageous. Why would it need to be that far? And that's the first thing I asked the officers when they said it could be done in 18 months.
Hasn't that been passed by the council already?
No, this is the new one, the extension.
The current one is at 10 though, let's be honest, everyone.
The 2017 one was for 10 years.
Yeah, non-notified, 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm conscious of time. David Innes.
We're told we have got global warming and the Hutt Valley is going to be flooded up to milling. Why isn't this fill, also the fill that was dumped at the bottom of the hill, put to some better use and filling up the Hutt Valley somewhere? Or even putting another lane into Wellington, because I'm sure by the size of the fill that's come over into Wainuiomata, you could have got Wellington by now.
Josh, you want to respond to that? Josh.
So yes, one of the major things that with the climate emergency and climate change coming on, flooding is going to become a far more frequent event. All I can say to that is if I'm successful in my regional council bid, regional council will be going very hard out in this to try and stop the expansion continuing going on, because this becomes a major flood risk, it becomes a major environmental disaster waiting to happen. As for an extra lane to Wellington, I'm more for light rail through to Wellington myself, but I guess there's debate around going for that. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Trilly.
Darling, I'm bringing the microphone.
So I'm a newbie to Wainuiomata as well. We've been here for 4 or 5 years. We've invested a lot of money into Homedale Village to get it revitalised, because it was a tip when we came here and it was a bit of an embarrassing site. So my question, there's already the trucks going through, there's potentially 100. Jo couldn't actually quite figure out what number she was going to come up with. So how come we don't have a slow zone, a speed limit, something to counteract what is already happening and what is going to escalate? My granddaughter is going to be riding a bike to school. She's currently at the kindy. It seems like nobody gives a shit about the kids. So yeah, let's put something in place ASAP regarding that and everything else.
Tralee, absolutely, as it's been said that part of any application there has to be a traffic management plan put into that. We are certainly now voluntarily looking at ways in which we can reduce that number. I think 200 would be an obscene amount, getting it down, but also how it's going to deal with through the rest of the village and in areas like that, we're certainly going to look at.
Anania.
Kia ora koutou. My question was just about process, that's all for the meeting. And I think the art for this issue, because it sits under the RMA, which is Wainuiomata Regional Council and the Hutt City Council. So no disrespect to our local government people, but I think the answers are sitting here with Wainuiomata Regional Council, especially to do with the resource consent, and then any issues to do with the river, land or the sea sit with Wainuiomata Regional Council. So my question is, can we get some more people up here, City Council, to answer some of our questions? I'm a Coast Road resident and involved with the golf course, so I've got an interest in the river and the land down that way, and to me, I'll be following this through. But my question really is about process. We've got to have some people up here that, no disrespect to Trevor's a local, but I think they'll be able to answer. And again,
no, there is disrespect. I mean, we know this. We'll be straight about it.
Okay, got it.
Fully agree with the sentiment. It would be nice to have some absolute experts, no disrespect to anyone who's up here, myself included, but in terms of the Resource Management Act, there is a fair amount of recourse in that. Environmental considerations and environmental effects are a major part in revoking consents, particularly related to water issues. I'm not sure if you can jump from one to the other, but since the Wainuiomata River will be affected under a bunch of different scenarios from this, there's absolutely a legal means within the Resource Management Act to oppose this consent at the very least, or that is my understanding of it anyway, being a scientist rather than a lawyer. But yeah, that's my layman's understanding.
Cheers, Josh. Campbell.
Thank you. So just on a couple of points. First off, I'd just like to reaffirm what Trevor said in regards to a resident coming to him in 2016. I had a resident at the back there who also approached me probably 2015. Well, I don't think, I wasn't on council back then, but it was around 2013, 2014. So, and I think the concerns that were raised there were in regards to how at that time, how the clean fill was operating and what was actually going in it. And I, again, put that trust on officers to be able to tell us that, to make sure that it's actually being operated in an appropriate way. And we got those reassurances. Clearly, that hasn't been the case, and that's been extremely disappointing. We need to review that and make sure that it doesn't happen again, because it keeps on happening. That's the first point. The second one is around transparency. I really think we obviously need to be far more transparent in how we do this. No, that's no question whatsoever. The best way we can do that in regards to restoring some faith with the local community, and this is where my question probably comes back to, is what Ginny has suggested around making this publicly notified. The simple fact is that the landfill is owned by the council. It is the council's application. So the council can withdraw that application if it wishes to do so, and then it can resubmit. I think with the knowledge that the council will have, particularly after this meeting and hearing from the residents, they would surely understand that it affects far more than 9 properties. But that is in the power of council, and that's what I'm calling on, because this is an operational decision. So but that is the call that I'm making to CE, to the people who will be around this decision, and I think that's a path forward to give residents a fair suck at the sab and some fairness back to this issue. So that's kind of a question, I suppose, as well. But
You've answered your own question, mate. Well
yeah.
Withdraw the consent, start again. All right. Sophie Ellis.
I also have a loud voice, but yeah, okay. All right, there we go. Off the camera. Okay. Kia ora everyone. Alice Soper, Wood Street resident. Generally disappointed in things that are going on over here. I guess my question is kind of around trust as well. This is not the first, this is the second public meeting that's been organised by residents in 2 weeks because of dodgy things that council has been doing, in terms of us having to be keeping an eye on things and bringing them to attention that actually, you know what, Wainui does care about Wainui. And you know this because, you know, thank you to Sally Ann and to others who have organised this meeting, and also to the people that organised to get down to a very late call out around Queen Street last week. And I guess my frustration is around how can I trust that there's not going to be something else? My question really is, what else don't we know about? We didn't know about Queen Street. We didn't know about the Petone water bottling, and we didn't know about this either. So what else don't we know about Ray Wallace?
Thanks, Alice, and I do think you need to be a little bit more transparent and say who you're representing here. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, you believe that. It's a little bit like the, yeah, right. So what I can say is that we are here to listen, we are talking, and we are going to work with our community. Simple as that.
So we'll bring
Diana.
Hi, yeah, my name's Diana Clark and I'm from Coast Road, and yeah, I feel like I should be notified, should be one of the people notified, even though I'm 6 k's from here. I do believe that, you know, you're falling short of your responsibilities by not advising everybody on the Coast Road. But the one thing that I've just been sitting here listening to is how many trucks come past the school. You're saying there's at the top end 400, because the trucks go forward and they go back. They're not, you're talking about 200 movements or 100 movements. You're not. You're talking about 200. And if you think that that tip's open for 8 hours a day, there is just over 25 trucks going past here. That's one just about every 2 minutes. And a lot of them have trailers on them. So you've got the children exposed to that for 6 hours, and I've done it on 8 hours for the tip to be open, but for those 6 hours, you've got a truck passing here every 2 minutes. I think the parents of those children should be very concerned, because I've seen the way that they drive through here. So, and thank you for the opportunity to talk, and thank you, Sally Ann, for organising this. It's been wonderful.
Monique.
Hello, everybody. I've got a couple of questions. My first question is regards to revenue. How much are each of these trucks paying to dump their waste in Wainuiomata? And where is that money going? Is it being reinvested into Wainuiomata, or is it going into the general coffers and being spent elsewhere? And my second is with regards to liquid waste. As Sally Ann said earlier, it's not a clean fill if it's got liquid waste going into it. Let's call it a landfill or a tip. And what is the council going to do to stop liquid waste going into the tip? And what is the council going to do about cleaning it up? Because we don't want that shit in our stream, in our river.
Is there a response?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly say that I'm not aware of what the trucks are. That is an operational matter, but we can find that out for you. I do want to say, and also what Diana said was, 200 traffic movements or every 2 minutes, that would be totally unacceptable to me as a resident as well. I don't think that would be acceptable to anybody, and we've given that commitment. You've heard that from the Chief Executive tonight, that we will sit down and work that through. Yeah, but you're saying something going past every 2 minutes, that's unacceptable. That's loss of enjoyment, and certainly we're going to sit down and make sure that doesn't happen. There is a commitment that about the liquid. Absolutely, there's not supposed to be any liquid, so I don't know the answer to that. So the council staff will look into that for us. But can I also say that with, as it was set up there in the Ministry of Environment papers, if this was going to be the environmental cluster, then a fully certified, qualified expert would be saying no. And I have confidence in that.
But who picks the expert, right? Who picks the expert? The council.
The person that is appointed, as you would know, Trevor, has to run to a code of ethics as a professional. They are required to ensure that everything is in fact above board and use their expertise in that area.
Cheers, Ray.
Kia ora, team. My name is Zinny McCormick. Most of the councillors I know and be involved and do a few things around the community. A lot of friends living over here in Wainuiomata. Came here to listen to what was being said. But this is a very, very direct question. I'll probably answer your question as well. I attended a meeting on the 18th of May and posed a bunch of questions to the Mayor. Most of it regarding Sportsville and a lot of the sports organisations on here. And you might wonder, why am I talking about Sportsville? Wainuiomata was being pressured into a Sportsville. And I can tell you from senior council officers at meetings, and I will quote, if you do not join a Sportsville, what are you going to do when the council takes your land and build houses on it? So your sports clubs and your green space will have houses built on it, and that is a direct quote from a senior council officer. Now from the 18th of May, I'm still waiting on the answers. I don't expect them, because I can probably answer your question. What are the council officers doing? Wouldn't have a clue, because I surprised them about the Petone grandstand at that meeting on the 18th of May. Got no idea what the council officers are out doing in the community. So they need the landfill because they're going to take your sports ground and they're going to build houses on it. That's from a senior council officer.
Well, Zinny, thank you. But as you know, and you did have that good meeting with me in my office. You came in and we had a very good corridor. The issue with Sportsville is no longer on the table. While the funding is available, we've asked the sports clubs to go back and have further discussion here in Wainuiomata because it hasn't been able to come to fruition. The clubs just couldn't quite make that happen. Funding is still available, but to say that the houses are going to be built on all the Sportsvilles in Wainuiomata, it's simply not the case. It is simply not.
Gabriel.
Kia ora koutou, I also live on Wood Street. Just for clarification, not a member of any political party. But of course, you'll all remember when it flooded in 2004. Now, my late grandfather used to operate a clean fill in a residential area in Island Bay. And I can tell you this, he said, never again, never again. Not worth it. Didn't get the community support. So my question is, the community board, and some of you may know that last week I was sort of mediating, was one way of saying it, some cordial and conversation around the Queen Street Reserve. Now, our community board is meant to act as a bit of a buffer, okay, between council and between residents. Now I'm starting to get sick and tired that we cannot speak out on issues like SNAs. We've been told to stay neutral, okay? Now we come to the clean fill issue. Right, clean fill issue, again, that's what the commissioners stay silent. The clean fill issue never crossed our desk as a community board. We never saw it. We were never encouraged to put this out into public consultation. I want to apologise on behalf of the community board or on behalf of myself that we never had the opportunity to engage with you, the residents. And we want that to change. Specifically to you, Mr. Mayor, how can we guarantee, especially after this election, that our community board will actually have those delegation and powers to consult the community on huge issues like the clean fill issue?
Thank you, Gabriel. Gabriel, can I just clarify though? Gabriel, can I just clarify? You said that you were told you were not allowed to discuss issues around the SNAs. Who's told you that?
Sorry,
Mike, hey.
we need it back.
I'll have to try and recollect it, but what I do know is I was told that we as not only the councillors, but the community board members had to remain neutral to that issue. You know, we couldn't put our own opinion on it. Therefore, I interpreted that as meaning I could not engage on that particular issue. I think also yourself, Mr. Mayor, had to remain neutral on that issue as well, as that was going through its own process.
Can I just say, community boards, which have been part of this community for 29 years, I think it is now, that is the role of a community board, to act and advocate and voice on behalf of the community. And I've served on the Wainuiomata Community Board. So I'm really surprised, Gabriel. I want you to think back in your mind who told you that, because that's simply not the situation with community boards. Community boards are to stand up for the local community. So I'm surprised somebody's told you that.
Can I just make a suggestion? And that is, now that there is a new chief executive, that there be a review of some of the advice that goes to councillors and to the community board members, because there has been legal advice as to what can be said and what cannot be said. And I think it's fair to say that the advice that has gone to Hutt councillors in the past has been unusual.
Okay, well, that wraps up the open mic session, so to speak. My thanks on your behalf to our panellists tonight, especially the mayor got another run for his money. Who the shit would want to be the mayor? Jesus, it's all good. Way to go, brother. Good luck to you and Campbell for the upcoming elections. The final word is for Sally, who's done such a wonderful job in shining some light in this area. Our thanks to the panel.
You don't have to leave, you guys. I don't take up that much space. Okay, so a couple of things I noticed. With respect to council and councillors, if they wanted to be up here on the stage, they could have held a meeting, right? This is a public meeting. I've organised it. It's my meeting. I get the last word. You've had 9 years to organise a public meeting about this topic, and you didn't. Now, Chris, you made some really good points, and one of your points that I really liked was about failure of monitoring, and that what you can recognise is that the council now they've heard from the community, they're going to put in a whole heap of conditions and really be stringent around those rules. And I've got a folder here, it's full of rules, it's full of conditions that are in a consent. Many of them went to an independent hearings commission, and they were, I thought, watertight legal conditions, and you guys ignored them all, so well done to that. And that tells me how much weight we can put behind your conditions. So I've heard those promises before, Chris, and I've been listening to them and to that rhetoric for a long time, and I'm tired of it, and this is why we're here. The other thing that I heard was that I heard 3 apologies, and I really like that, because I don't know about you, but when I make a mistake, and I make a lot of mistakes because I'm human, when I make a mistake, I apologise. And I've heard 3 apologies in this room tonight, and they came from Gabriel, thank you, from Trevor, we've gone, yeah. Thank you, and from Campbell. Apologies from people who say, and I'll paraphrase a little bit, we dropped the ball, we missed it, we were asleep at the wheel. And you know what? This community deserves those apologies. I didn't hear them from anyone else. I do want to just point out there's a wonderful process called an independent hearing, okay? And there's a person who's independent and they run it. And the great thing about them is this wonderful word, independent, blah, blah, blah. So after the 2011 consents were not adhered to, I picked up the phone, because I'm a Kiwi and that's what we do, and I rang the independent hearings. His name's Alice Orban. And I said, hi Alistair, you've not met me, but you'll be interested to hear I'm a resident of Coast Road, and you were the independent hearings commissioner on a consent that was heard at a hearing in 2011. He remembered it well. And I said, you might be interested to know that clean fill is still in operation, and there's been a 10-year extension put on it, and council are readying up to increase the size of it. What did he say, do you reckon, Wainui? The first words out of his mouth were, I can't talk to you. And what I love about that sentence is it tells us how independent those independent hearings commissioners are. Because who paid for him? Who pays his wages? Who does he depend on for work? Not me. City Council. So that tells you how independent they are. I've done some investigations of my own, and I found out that, and listen to this number, you'll be excited. I was excited when I found it. 98% of consents that go to independent hearings are approved. So do we think that maybe this is signed, sealed and delivered? And do we think maybe that that's what the council were counting on? Remember, this was non-notified. We're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to know. Do you think maybe council just assumed that this was going to happen? Do you think maybe they made promises to developers that there was an inexpensive clean fill in Wainui that they could use? I don't know. That's a question. So one of the things I heard about the investigations of a new site, well, you've had 9 years. It was supposed to operate for 6 years, so you've had 9 years to find a new site. Doesn't sound like you found one. That's not Wainuiomata's problem. That's council's problem. I don't pay rates to then find sites myself for new clean fills. I pay rates to pay the council to take care of town planning. That's your job. We asked you at a meeting, Joe and Ray, to withdraw this application. We got some great rhetoric about whether they can or can't. They can. Well, maybe they will after this meeting, I don't know. The wheel wash, that's a really interesting one. I know, everyone's giggling already. You guys, the festival operated from 2010 to 2017. What year did the wheel wash go in? Oh, I feel like we're playing a game. Yes. 20, you got it in one. Give this woman a car. Yeah, and you know why it went in? Because that lady standing on the wall against there, she rang the council and she said, I'm tired of this, what's going on, this road is filthy every day. And she started it. She said, it is still filthy. Exactly, thank you. She said, where's... It does. One of the consent conditions is that they will not put sediment on that road. And so 2018, they put in a wheel wash. Does it break down? Yeah, all the time. And actually, they have an option to bypass it. That's my favourite thing about this clean fill. So it's optional. Okay, so I have a folder of assurances. They've not been met. Why apply for things? Why put numbers that mean nothing? Why waste your time, your consultant's time, and our time when we read them? There's been a lot of reading that I've done, so you don't have to, if the facts aren't right the first time. I love Joe's idea of some tours for the clean fill. What do you reckon, Wainui? I think we could start a tourism venture. Come and tour our clean fill. It's awesome. See the stinky liquid waste. It's just slurry. There's nothing wrong with that. Have a drink. We've got some water prepared for you from the slurry. Be great. I would definitely go to that. I'm ex-Wellington Tourism, and so anything to promote this area, I'm right behind it. So sign me up for one of those tours. I'll bring up busloads from the cruise ships. It'll be amazing. I actually think that's all I'm happy to finish there. So tune in for my new tourism business. My new tourism business, Tours of the Unclean Fill. You heard it here first. It's a world first, and you know first. So you can all be shareholders. How does that sound, Wainui? Awesome.
Want me to wrap it up?
Wrap it up, man.
Okay, well, on behalf of Sally Ann and the media who were the two that have shone a light on all of this, thank you very much for your support. I think it's fair to say, even though some of the questions for the Mayor especially were a bit awkward, we need to be very grateful that we've got people in our community that care, people that are prepared to stand up against the tide of public opinion and make a stand and make sure their voice is heard. So, Sally Ann, we're very grateful. The fact that you're married to a Tamasese, I think, might be a factor in that. Who would know? Maybe. So there's a bit of food, and then at the back. Thank you all very much. Gabriel, can I ask you to come up and close our meeting? Thank you again, everybody, for your attendance.
Let's just all be upstanding for our karakia whakamitunga. Kia tau katoa, te whaia tō tātou ari kia ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, Ake, 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 amine.
And don't forget that Give a Little. They need money, they need support. It's on the Facebook page, Sally Ann. Maybe we can put the account number on. Thank you very much.